He was the saddest dog in the shelter. No name, no tail wag, no hope, just sad. Eyes in a kennel marked unadoptable. 4 months people passed him by until one man stopped and said, "I'll take him." What happened next stunned the shelter, staff, the town, and eventually the world. The shelter was full that day. Barking echoed off the concrete walls. Tails wagged behind metal bars and hopeful eyes followed every visitor who walked past. Dogs of every size, shape, and color waited, some bouncing with excitement, others lying silently in corners. But in the very back, in the quietest kennel, was a German shepherd. No one ever stopped to look at. He didn't bark. He didn't move. He sat with his head lowered, ears drooping, staring at the floor like he didn't even know he was still alive. His name tag had long since fallen off. The only thing hanging on his kennel was a splintered wooden sign with one word, unadoptable. The shelter staff had tried. Volunteers offered treats. A trainer had spent weeks trying to engage him. Nothing worked. The dog refused food for days at a time. He growled if anyone got too close. He didn't flinch, didn't beg, didn't hope. He just existed. His intake records painted a bleak picture. Years of backyard neglect, little social contact, suspected abuse, found wandering the streets with visible scars and a limp. His case had sat open for weeks. Most visitors never even walked past his gate, and if they did, they turned away quickly. But that afternoon, everything changed. A man named Daniel stepped through the shelter doors. He wasn't looking for a puppy. He wasn't even sure what brought him in. But as he passed the rows of excited dogs, his eyes landed on the German shepherd in the last kennel, the one no one looked at. He stopped, watched, waited, and while every other dog barked for attention, the one marked unadoptable looked up for the first time in days and met Daniel's eyes. Something passed between them, and it would change both of their lives forever. Daniel stood silently in front of the kennel, studying the dog behind the bars. The German shepherd didn't move, but his eyes didn't break away either. There was no tail wag, no excitement, just a quiet, hollow stare. Still, Daniel felt something stir inside him. Not fear, not pity, recognition. A shelter worker noticed and approached cautiously. "You're the first person to stop at that kennel in weeks," she said softly. "He's not like the others." Daniel turned his head slightly. "What's his name?" The woman hesitated. "We don't really use one. He doesn't respond. We call him Kennel 6, but his file says he never had a real name." Daniel nodded, eyes still locked on the dog. "He does now." The staff tried to dissuade him. "He has behavioral issues," they warned. "He growls. He doesn't eat around people. He might never come around. We think he's too far gone." Daniel didn't flinch. "I'm not looking for perfect," he said gently. "I'm looking for honest." And with that, he filled out the paperwork. It took longer than usual. Extra waivers, extra questions. But Daniel was patient. He chose the name Chance because that's what he was offering and maybe what they both needed. When the staff opened the kennel, Chance didn't bolt or resist. He just stood slowly, cautiously, and followed Daniel out as if he knew something different was happening but wasn't sure if he could believe it yet. As they stepped through the shelter doors and into the light, Daniel didn't tug the leash. He walked slowly, letting Chance take his time. Behind them, shelter staff stood in silence, some with tears in their eyes. No one had expected this, but sometimes the ones know. One believes in us. The first night was quiet, too quiet. Daniel had prepared a soft bed, toys, and food, but Chance stood in the corner of the living room, unmoving, eyes fixed on the door. He didn't eat. He didn't sit. He simply watched. When Daniel approached, Chance turned away, stiff and silent. Daniel didn't push. He sat on the floor at a distance and read aloud, just his voice filling the room, steady and soft. "No expectations, buddy," he whispered. "Just your pace." Days passed with little change. Chance still wouldn't make eye contact. He flinched at sudden sounds. Sometimes he'd stand by the door for hours, like he was waiting for someone to call him back to the place he came from. But Daniel never left him alone. He spoke gently, left food nearby, slept on the couch, not in his bed, so Chance would never feel alone in the dark. Then something happened. One rainy afternoon, thunder cracked loudly overhead. Daniel was sipping tea on the floor when he saw it. Chance pacing, trembling, ears flattened. Without thinking, Daniel reached out his hand, not to touch but to let him know he was there. To his shock, Chance stepped closer. He didn't whimper or growl. He simply lay down near Daniel, head low, breath shaking. It was the first time he'd come willingly. Daniel didn't move. He just whispered, "It's okay. You're safe now." That night, for the first time, Chance ate from Daniel's hand. And a few days later, something even bigger. Daniel woke up from a nap to find Chance lying beside him on the floor, curled up, with his head resting gently on Daniel's foot. It wasn't trust yet, but it was the beginning of something real. By month 3, Chance was a different dog. He still had quiet days, moments where shadows made him flinch or loud noises sent him behind the couch, but his eyes were brighter now. He greeted Daniel at the door with a slow tail wag. He accepted belly rubs. He even played tug-of-war gently, like he was rediscovering what it meant to be a dog. Daniel had no idea how deep that bond had grown until the day everything changed. They were walking home from the park, their usual route beneath rows of leafy trees. Chance trotted confidently beside Daniel, ears perked, leashed loose. Then, without warning, Daniel stumbled. He clutched his chest, gasped, and collapsed onto the sidewalk. Chance froze. Cars passed. No one noticed, but then the dog, once called unadoptable, sprang into action. He barked loud and sharp over and over, pacing in circles around Daniel's body. When a car slowed, Chance darted into the road, barking and blocking its path. The driver, a nurse, on her way home from a night shift, jumped out and ran to help. Daniel was unconscious but breathing. An ambulance was called. Chance never left his side, not for a second. At the hospital, nurses were stunned to learn the full story. The dog that saved Daniel's life wasn't a trained service animal. He was a rescue, a write-off, a long shot. The headline made the news that night. Unadoptable dog saves man who saved him. Daniel recovered quickly, but something in him had changed. Not just his health, but his understanding. Chance hadn't just become a companion. He had become a protector, a partner, a hero, and the world would never see him the same again. After the news story aired, everything changed. Chance became a local celebrity overnight. Reporters called him the dog with the sad eyes and the Lion's Heart. People from all over the country wrote letters, sent care packages, and donated to the shelter that once nearly gave up on him. But for Daniel, none of that mattered. What mattered was that Chance was home. To celebrate his recovery, Daniel brought Chance back to the shelter, not to return him but to inspire others. As they walked through the familiar halls, dogs barked and wagged just as they had the day Daniel first visited. But now, Chance walked beside him, not scared, not broken but tall, confident, calm. Volunteers and staff came out to greet him. Some wiped away tears. The same dog they once labeled unadoptable now offered gentle nose bumps to every hand held out. And when they reached the back wall, something new had been installed. A bronze plaque. Etched into it were the words, "Chance, the dog who proved everyone wrong." Daniel knelt beside him and whispered, "You did good, buddy." Chance licked his hand, then turned his attention to a frightened dog huddled in the last kennel. Without a word, he walked up and laid down, tail wagging softly, sending a message no one else could. "I've been there. You'll be okay." From that day forward, Daniel and Chance visited shelters across the state, offering comfort to dogs who needed it most. Chance became a symbol not just of recovery but of redemption. And at night, when all was quiet, Chance would curl into Daniel's lap, sigh deeply, and fall asleep, safe, loved, and finally at peace. He wasn't just adopted, he was chosen. And that made all the difference.